in the corridors of power.
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. We have got another packed show for you tonight.
Strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Especially as the world responds to President Trump launching strikes on Iran. We'll be discussing that reaction throughout the show and later speaking to an Iranian artist about Iranians in the UK and what they really think. Also, is the government about to introduce the long-threatened trans-inclusive conversion therapy law? Therapist James Esses joins us to talk about the dangers of such a bill. University students are urged to be shocked and offended as new guidance urges institutions to ditch the woke. Canada under Carney, Canadian journalist Rupert Subramania joins us to discuss the latest threat to free speech in Canada, including the re-education of Jordan Peterson. And is it ever okay to give a Nazi salute? Comedian David Walliams' recent antics have been branded by the BBC as completely unacceptable. But have the BBC just forgotten what a joke is? And, of course, we have some comedians answering some crazy cultural conundrums from our live studio audience. But first, the news.
Good evening, it's 1 minute past 7. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. A breaking update to begin this evening from the Reuters news agency. In the last few moments, President Trump has said that the US had a spectacular military success yesterday, taking a, quote, bomb right out of Iran's hands. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned Iran against retaliation following US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, saying such an action would be the worst mistake they've ever made. That's as a top US military general said that no other military in the world could have done this. After weeks of preparation, US officials say the mission, which has been codenamed Midnight Hammer, obliterated Iran's nuclear ambitions but did not target any troops or civilians. In the last hour, the advisor to the Iranian Supreme Leader has said that even assuming the complete destruction of the sites, the game is not over because the enriched materials remain intact. The US said 3 key sites, Natanz, Isfahan and Fordo, sustained extremely severe damage. New footage shows the Natanz and Isfahan sites before and after the strikes. More than 125 military aircraft took part in the offensive, which has been described as the largest B-2 operational strike in US history. Iran earlier labelled the strikes as outrageous with everlasting consequences, as Vice President J.D. Vance said that the US is not at war with Iran, but it is at war with its nuclear programme. In a press briefing at the Pentagon, US Air Force General Dan Kane said that the priority of the US is their safety. Israel and Iran have continued to attack each other today as the IDF say that the rate of their strikes will increase, that they are prepared to continue their campaign for as long as necessary. It was reported earlier that Israel struck targets in 10 cities across Iran. It's been confirmed that 7 Iranian Revolutionary Guards and 2 soldiers have been killed in Israeli attacks on 2 military sites in the city of Yaz. Iran reportedly launched its most significant attacks on Israel since the conflict was renewed last week. To domestic reaction in the last hour, the leaders of the UK, France and Germany have issued a joint statement urging Iran not to destabilise the region as they reiterated their own commitment to peace and affirmed their support for the security of Israel. Earlier, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer recognised the risk of escalation in the Middle East and beyond and is urging Iran to negotiate with the US.
It is important that we now de-escalate the situation, stabilise the region, and get the parties back around the table to negotiate. And I've been speaking with international leaders this morning to that end. So I want to reassure the British public that we're doing everything we can to stabilise the situation, to de-escalate the situation, and to get to a negotiated outcome. But I'm very clear in my own mind that Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. That is the greatest threat to stability in the region.
British citizens and their dependents are set to be evacuated from Israel as early as next week. The government is urging those who want to leave to make contact with the Foreign Office as soon as possible. The Israeli government says around 22,000 tourists are seeking to be evacuated, but it's unclear how many are UK citizens. British Airways have now suspended flights to Dubai and Qatar following the strikes. And lots of international reaction coming in this evening. Reports from the Reuters news agency saying that Russia, China and Pakistan have proposed a draft UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate, unconditional ceasefire in the Middle East. And another report from Reuters that NATO countries have agreed a statement for their upcoming summit that sets a goal of 5% of GDP for annual defence and security-related spending by 2035. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Josh.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. You know the score, this show where we cast our gaze across the spectrum of culture, current affairs and politics, doing our very best to deliver a dollop of common sense to that which has become senseless. We have got a very exciting show ahead this evening and we're going to get straight into it. First up, we've got psychotherapist and founder of Just Therapy, James Esses. Welcome, James. Welcome to the show. Here he is. Now, you're here to talk about the government's proposed trans-inclusion conversion bill. Before we get into that, obviously, huge world affairs are kicking off. There is a strange connection between Iran and trans ideology, isn't there?
Strangely enough, there is, and that's because a lot of people who support these ideologies, as I'm going to call them, share common belief systems, which I'm going to say are kind of pathological, actually. Kind of cognitive distortions, as we call them in psychology, projection, catastrophization, black and white thinking. And so you've got the scenario where people who support gender ideology support often hostile terrorist regimes, even though those terrorist regimes, if they knew that they were queer, would probably kill them.
That's it. Well, when you have queers for Palestine and, you know, if the idea is that they went actually into Gaza, of course, Hamas would kill them. And the same in Iran, and it's people mostly from the progressive left who've been pushing both of these ideologies. And it's a very strange thing that they're sort of seemingly pushing an ideology, in Iran's case, I guess, that it, you know, promotes women being raped and murdered for not covering their hair, or gay men being hung.
This is it, but, you know, everyone needs a cause. I mean, we've seen this with Greta Thunberg, you know, to pivot from climate change to all of a sudden seeing her sailing off on a dinghy towards, you know, the banks of Gaza is quite concerning, really, because I think a lot of these people just feed off creating hostility and animosity across society, actually fracturing and dividing people.
That's it. Well, and the irony is, of course, that they're meant to be bringing people together. Well, look, let's look at what's going on with the government. Now, this issue has been followed quite closely on the show for the last couple of years. I last heard that they were dropping the trans element of the conversion bill. What is that? Not that doesn't seem to be the case.
It's been off, it's been on, it's back on again. The Conservative government U-turned multiple times on this. I think Labour really do mean it when they say they're pushing forward with it now. I think we're not that far away from a bill.
So if for people who aren't initiated into what's actually going on here, do you mind describing what the bill means?
Well, the bill is supposedly relates to conversion therapy. This is meant to be some grave injustice happening to particularly transgender people in society. It's meant to protect them from kind of people who want to stop them from being transgender. The twisted irony is that what myself and other ethical therapists are trying to do is to get people to accept themselves as they are. I mean, the meaning of conversion is to change something to something else. We just want people to accept themselves in their bodies. And that essentially is going to be criminalised under this legislation. Not only that, but parents, family members who are concerned about their children potentially medically transitioning, if they don't support that, they could well be criminalised too.
That's it. So there's something called like talking therapies where someone, and then there's affirmative therapy where if someone rocks up to you, you're a therapist, and I turn up and say, I feel like I'm a woman, you would have to essentially under this bill say, you are a woman. And if you didn't, then what? You could go to jail or be found guilty of breaking the law.
Well, that's what we've seen in other jurisdictions. You know, the term they use is anything that suppresses someone's gender identity could be criminalised. Well, what does that mean? Am I suppressing someone's identity if I don't use their pronouns? Am I suppressing someone's identity if I say to them, I don't believe that men can become women?
It's not just this. I mean, there's because there's obviously a spectrum of gender identities and things like non-binary. So if someone rocks up and says, I'm non-binary, and you say, well, actually, I don't believe in that ideology, again, you could be done for kind of blasphemy, I guess.
Correct, but it's not even that. I mean, you know, the term suppress is so vague, so ambiguous. I mean, what about looking for original causes of discomfort? What about considering other options? What about pointing out the significant risks associated with medical transitioning? All of this could be caught. And the risk is that it's going to have a chilling effect on the profession. I mean, most therapists, most ethical therapists I know, won't touch trans clients because they're already fearful that they're going to be hauled in for disciplinary proceedings by the body. So now, if they face the prospect of going to prison, they're not going to touch them with a barge pole. And the problem is...
By the way, I should just say I'm all for therapists not touching their clients.
In the metaphor.
I've got some memories coming back.
But the fact is that therapists and these clients need to work together on this because this is a mental health condition. These children believe that they may have been born in the wrong bodies. They've been sold this myth by activist groups, even in their schools. That's the real conversion therapy taking place, telling young people that they could have been born in the wrong body. Those are the people that belong in prison, not ethical, explorative therapists. Yeah,
but there are therapists who very much do push this ideology, right? I mean, I've got a friend who's a psychotherapist as well, who's saying that their boards are sort of full of pushing this stuff. The magazines are sort of talking about it constantly. Are they sort of recognising that therapists also have the right to not believe this stuff?
Well, the kind of status quo amongst the therapy bodies is affirmation, as you pointed out, which is essentially being nothing more than a nodding dog, kind of affirming someone towards their identity or moving towards medicalisation. Therapy, the whole world has been utterly captured by this ideology. And, you know, in my view, it's unethical. It flies in the face of the Hippocratic Oath. I mean, the first thing that healthcare professionals should avoid doing is causing any harm to their patients. We know that children have been and will continue to be sterilised and mutilated in the name of this ideology while they're suffering from a mental health condition. We saw the Cass review, which specifically said that explorative therapy should be the treatment for this mental health condition. Now the government may essentially eradicate explorative therapy with this legislation.
Well, let's have a quick look, actually, at the clip of the government, what happened in Parliament this week. No, we're not going to have a look at it. Okay. Because it's just too dangerous for you. Actually, one thing I do want to look at, though, just to see how things might be changing, is because I was on your X feed earlier, and you reposted something from the BBC, and this shows that actually things might be changing. And it's quite an amusing clip. I think we do have that one.
London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine has released research which says that nearly 600 heat-related deaths are expected in the UK. Malcolm Mystery, who is involved in the research, says that the aged, pregnant people, women, and those with pre-existing health conditions need to take precautions.
So it seems like if now even the BBC have finally come around to the fact that there's no such thing as pregnant people, it's, you know, that describes women, then it's strange that our government is still seemingly in hock to this ideology then.
To be honest, I'm not going to give the BBC credit for that, actually. I'm just going to give that news presenter, because she's clearly reading from the teleprompter. And my understanding is that the teleprompter read pregnant people. You see her write.
I think she was doing a direct quote of somebody else, yeah.
I think so. But then she kind of corrects it and says woman. So, you know, I commend her bravery. And actually, I've not heard her whereabouts since, so I don't know whether she's going to be now excommunicated from the BBC. But you're right. The government has not listened to the Cass review. The government seems to be also hell-bent on ignoring the recent Supreme Court judgment. They want to push this stuff further and further. And actually, this legislation, crucially, will actually... the term gender identity, for the first time in this country, will become part of our legislative framework. I mean, it seems almost as if we're moving further towards gender ideology rather than rowing back from it, even with all of the significant damage it's caused to society.
Because it is such a hard thing to define. When you say the words gender identity, you can have an idea, but if you actually try and pinpoint what that means and all the different genders, and you start trying to put that into law, of course, it becomes unusable as a law.
Precisely. Well, I want to stop using the term gender altogether. We don't need it. We should move back to the term sex, and while we're at it, we should repeal, obsolete laws like the Gender Recognition Act and parts of the Equality Act, which essentially prop up this notion of gender identity in society. We need to stop putting this idea into young people's heads that it is possible to be trapped in the wrong body. It simply isn't. And I work with these therapists, with these clients day in, day out. A lot of my clients are vulnerable teenagers, and some of them are so traumatised by what they've been taught. Not only do they hate their bodies, they can't even bring themselves to actually say the words of some of their sexual body parts. I mean, that's how damaged they've been. So we need to come together as a society and start to protect these young people rather than pushing them further into the grips of this dangerous ideology.
What do you think is going to happen next with this bill? Do you think they're finally... Because the point is that they've sort of said, oh, we're writing it, and finally we're about to publish it. And I believe that it was raised in Parliament because the SNP want to push in their own version of it and have said that they'll just go along with whatever happens with England and Wales.
Yeah.
And the government just seem willing to appease them. But, of course, if this does go to that next level, is there any chance it could, of course, backfire? Because once it's written down, it will be opened to examination by people.
Well, as I said, I would like to see some sort of amendment that actually captures the real conversion therapy, those people telling children that they're in the wrong body. But I think there's no stopping this legislation now. I don't think there's a compromise position. If it's implemented, society, children, therapists are going to suffer as a result. But you know what I would say is that I and many others in my group, Just Therapy, we care far more about child safeguarding than anything else. And so even if this legislation goes through, I'm going to continue practicing the way that I do, which is through exploration. And I don't care if the police come knocking on my door. They're welcome to do so, because child safeguarding is the most important thing in society.
Well, look, obviously, I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, it's going to make great television. Anyway, that was psychotherapist and founder of Just Therapy, James Esses. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Dame Nigel Griffith, Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Equalities, has said our draft legislation on conversion practices will be trans-inclusive. It is crucial that trans people are safe, included and protected from harm and discrimination. The previous government repeatedly broke their promises to deliver on the issue of conversion practices and allowed the debate to become ever more toxic and divided. So, coming up is free speech finally on return on university campuses. And I'll be joined by Faraza Al-Aviv to talk about what Iranians really think about their regime and the ones who live in this country. But next on Free Speech Nation, my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our wonderful studio audience. Back in just a moment. See you soon.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. So, my comedian guests this evening are Kerry Marks and Adi McQueen. There they are, let's give them a round of applause. How are you both?
I'm very well. I'm enjoying the sunshine.
Yes, yeah, OK, sure. My wife's got red hair, and the sunshine is when she sort of hides for the next 2 months or so.
I just put in factor 100, which is basically formaldehyde, and hope for the best.
Very well.
I mean, I've had a mole removed, but, you know, I'm fine.
I didn't want to say anything.
I've not got red hair, but I'm worse. I go out in the sun and I'm burnt. I walk straight back in again.
There you're here.
Loathe it.
Loathe. Well, look, we've got to get straight to it because we have some important questions. First one is from Jan.
Hi there.
Hey, Jan.
Is Children in Need funding extremist ideology?
Is Children in Need funding extremist ideology? I don't know if you've seen what's happened here. BBC's Children in Need. They are funding Anti-Racist Cumbria. That's a charity that claims gender-critical views, such as those held by J.K. Rowling. They say they're rooted in white supremacy and patriarchy. The charity, which offers anti-racism education and youth outreach, received £42,500 and also £50,000, I think, the year before. This is quite a lot of money from Children in Need. What do you think about this, Kerry?
And this is the charity that says you're a white supremacist if you're gender critical.
Yes, that's the idea. Have you given money in the past to Children in Need?
I haven't, to be honest, no.
So actually, you're, like, really happy about this?
I'm not happy about it, but no,
not affected.
I'm not personally affected, no, but there are obviously other charities that I probably do support that this money could be donated to instead, so, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Kerry, so, the idea to say that this is white supremacy and also that this is, it comes from sort of patriarchy, when the fact is that the women who have first stood up to gender ideology have all been mostly left-wing and lesbians. The idea that they're, supports the patriarchy is ridiculous.
What age are we in, honestly? Why does every tin rattler nowadays have a manifesto? When did it all become... Everything's become politics. Like, can you give some money to children who are in need of wheelchairs, and whilst you're at it, also to men who really need to go into women's changing rooms at the swimming baths? Where did this become juxtaposed? So, no, I don't get it at all, Josh. I think it's... I think the charity is lovely, but it's all going... So at some point, Pudsy's going to be accused of being ableist for wearing his little eye cover. So I don't know where this all ends, really.
Yeah, but what do you think about this? I was quite shocked to hear that this kind of money was going to an organisation that's pushing out these views.
Is it suitable for children to be learning about things being because of the white supremacy and the patriarchy? Like, it seems... I think... OK, in general, men have more conspiracy theories, but I think the big conspiracy theory that women have is that the patriarchy causes everything and the toxic masculinity causes everything. Like, you know, what are the causes of World War I? 2, toxic masculinity. Why did Columbus go...
You've got us.
Yes, why did Columbus go to Why did Columbus go to America?
Toxic masculinity.
Yes, it was man spreading over the ocean blue.
Gender ideology.
Yes. What is a square... Or why did Neil Armstrong go to the moon?
Let me have a guess. Is it something to do with appreciating women or something?
No, toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity.
Like all toxic men, he just needed more space. So we can just make everything about toxic masculinity and the patriarchy, and it's just not true.
OK, well...
actually, you're making toxic masculinity sound really good. So it got us to the moon, is what you're saying.
Well, speaking of some people, I imagine, thinking it's toxic masculinity, do we have a question about Iran that's just kicked off? Gavan, you ask us about Iran. No, it's all right, mate. Go for it. That's all right, mate. Let's ask this question. It's all good. It's all good. We're freely doing
shuffling you.
Happened in the,
okay, microphone.
Right,
go.
My question is, if you support Iran with the USA interfering, does that make you an enemy of the West?
So, Gavan, what they're going to do is they're going to send you into Iran and you're going to confuse everybody. It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, but I'm about to say that I've booked a holiday there for 2 weeks.
No, you haven't.
Yeah.
No. You haven't.
You actually genuinely would fool me. I think that's where you would go.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to wear your GB News cap.
I'm my GB News, yeah.
Ayatollah is a big fan of the channel.
That'll go down really well, yeah.
But there is a serious point to, really, I know, to what's going on. That I feel that on both sides there's, like, blaming each other for what's going on and propaganda on both sides. Now, what I would like to see, please have peace in the world, because this is affecting not just what's happening in the Middle East. This is going to, you know, if it carries on like it does, this is going to affect the whole world.
That's an interesting point. The point, I think a lot of people agree with you, but the argument also would go, I think everybody wants peace, but allowing a terrorist regime to have a nuclear weapon is not necessarily the way to go about it.
I'd like peace. It sounds lovely, doesn't it? I like it when it comes with quiet, but there's some really awful leaders in the world. There's some terrible, terrible despots. And you can make an argument to leave them in place and it's not our right to get involved and so on. But once it's to the point where they're not only threatening to kill us all, but they're building a nuclear bomb and saying, hey, look, I'm building this bomb. And by the way, I'm definitely going to kill you all. I think at that point it becomes quite a serious threat. And I'll stand for anyone's right, by the way, if they want to defend the regime and say they think it's all a load of baloney and so on. But we're seeing people on the streets of London doing Nazi salutes and waving the flag of the regime. This is our enemy. These are people who want us dead. And so I'd say at the very least they're a liability.
Yeah, I mean, did you... I mean, I agree with that. I don't know if you agree with that, AD, and I don't know if you saw any of the photos yesterday of people who would, I guess, classify themselves as left-wing and supporters of women and supporters of gay people, yet holding posters of the Ayatollah.
It doesn't make any sense, because we're welcoming a lot of refugees and asylum seekers in from Iran for the reasons that they are being persecuted.
Yep.
So how can we, on one hand, say you're allowed to come here because of your regime, also, yeah, your regime is great? I mean, the Ayatollah has openly said, hasn't he, that he wishes death to all Jewish people. Which
I'm against.
Anti-America.
Yeah,
I'm against that.
Yeah, anti-America.
Very much.
Jewish people just want to be left in peace to go shopping. It's a very different vibe.
I wish I could go shopping. So our next question is from Anton.
Some stereotypes I agree with.
Is Keir Starmer right to have a say on who plays at Glastonbury?
Is Keir Starmer right to say on who has a say on who's playing at Glastonbury? Yes. So I don't know if you've seen this story. This is obviously about kneecap. Now we can only talk a limited. You know, there's an ongoing court case, but the fact is that we have a music group who have supposedly shown support for a terrorist regime. But do you think the Prime Minister coming in here is helpful at all?
It's very helpful for kneecap. It's
yes,
very
sell
helpful
more.
for them. They are selling more and more albums ever before. They were just in Ireland, really. Now, sure, you can't go down the street without hearing C-E-A-R-T-A. It's coming on Stukvi Ingorda. I've done a few gigs with them myself back in Ireland.
Someone's a fan.
So he can say what he wants. He can voice his opinion. If he's allowed to do that, he's got a platform, let's face it. But I think it's not going to achieve anything other than making kneecap even more popular.
OK, but what about the idea that the BBC is going to be providing advertising for this group and that we pay for that?
Tell me, Josh, what things I'm not allowed to say.
Well, you can't sort of say whether this definitely happened or not. It's an ongoing court case, but we can
talk about them.
We could talk about Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch's response to this and whether they should be getting involved in the lineup of Glastonbury.
I absolutely agree with Aideen in that sense, in that
Should they be booking
Keir
India?
Starmer should have said definitely book them, and that might have put that they would go, well, what's the point of this then? not achieving anything. There's no rebel going on here. Should he be allowed to answer a question, which is all he did? Yeah, of course he should. Should they be playing at Glastonbury? What, at the festival? I don't even know what's happening anymore. It's the festival of love and peace and people giving each other ecstasy hugs, and let's go and see a band called Kneecap who, am I allowed to say, seem to maybe arguably celebrate terrorist groups around the world who want us all dead. I personally, and also I just find they're ridiculous. I don't care for that. Do you like their music?
Oh, I
don't care, because I don't. and the silly hood, like, oh, Grandma, can you knit me a Nazi outfit now? What's going on with this? I don't even understand this glorification of violence that's become a thing even at Glastonbury, except though they're now, Glastonbury used to be young, happy people on drugs, and now it's a load of middle-aged, rich Trotskyites.
So we need to drink more drugs, is it? And listen to less...
Get back to the drugs. That's what I'm saying. Kids, hey, kids, and we're going to be handing some out in the break.
What I should say for Ofcom purposes is don't take drugs.
Don't take drugs except in the break.
What I was kind of hoping was that Glastonbury would replace Kneecap with someone a bit safer, like Kanye West.
Yeah.
Right, coming up, I'll be speaking to Faraza Alaveh about what Iranians think of the current regime in their country and about Trump's attacks on the nuclear facilities. But next on Free Speech Nation is free speech finally coming back to Britain's universities. See you in a couple of minutes.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Just like we're seeing across the UK, the heat wave that's also been in place in other areas of Europe is now beginning to subside and ease, those temperatures generally dropping back towards closer to average for the time of year. And bar the odd shower, there will be plenty of sunshine across many areas of the Mediterranean. High pressure is looking like it will be staying in charge for a good portion of this forthcoming week, so there'll be plenty of fine weather around.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, a very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Sunshine and showers is the name of the game over the next few days, all because an area of low pressure is sat just to the north of the UK. Some tightly spaced isobars mean there's quite a brisk breeze around, and it's these weather fronts that are really driving in those showers. They have the potential to be heavy at times, also thundery in places as well. They're moving in on that brisk breeze, which is also heralding in some fresher conditions. And so we're losing the humidity that we've had around recently. So tonight should be much more comfortable for sleeping for everyone. Temperatures generally around 10 to 16 degrees Celsius. A few of those showers will just be lingering across the far southeast first thing tomorrow morning, but they will eventually clear their way off. And generally for the southern half of England into Wales, tomorrow starts on a nice fine note, lots of bright sunny conditions around. We will always have those showers though across parts of the north and the west. To begin with, some of those could still be on the heavy side with some longer spells of rain for Caithness, Sutherland and the Northern Isles also. Stronger winds here as well, perhaps close to gale strength for a time. The showers will continue in the north and west, but generally turn a little lighter as we head throughout the day. But if you're to the east of higher ground, so parts of County Antrim, County Down, but also eastern Scotland, eastern England, and more broadly across the southern half of the UK, it should be a relatively fine day overall with some decent sunny spells in there. It's still going to be blustery though, and you will notice that wind if you are outside, making it feel on the slightly cooler theme of things, generally temperatures between 15 and 24 degrees Celsius. Into Monday evening, the cloud will start to build from the west, perhaps some longer spells of rain arriving for Northern Ireland later on in the day. This heralds in another very changeable theme as we head throughout the rest of the week. So further showers, longer spells of rain are still possible, at times even more thunderstorms in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Arif Ahmed from the Office for Students says university isn't a safe space and that being shocked or offended is part of getting an education. It comes as new guidance is published ahead of a law coming into force this August aimed at protecting free speech on campus. I'm joined now by the organiser for Living Freedom, Alastair Donald. Welcome to the show. Many people have been asking for a law like this for a long time. Can you first of all talk about why you think something like this is actually even necessary?
Well, I think we've heard time and again over years and years about the problems of free speech on university campuses, so it's no surprise to many people that something has got to be done to address that problem. And 5 years ago, a group of people got together, talked with the then Conservative government about a new law which eventually, after much discussion in the Houses, was eventually passed, only for the Labour Party to come in to power and then almost as their first act to try to scupper it. And then it went into abeyance for a few months, and over the past 8, 9, 10 months there's been a concerted effort by many academics and academic organisations and campaigners to ensure that that bill does, or act as it is, does actually take effect. And what we're seeing just now, the announcement this week, is that the guidance that they've just produced will come into effect on the 1st of August. So it does seem that the campaigners and the academics organisations have prevailed and made this successful, which is brilliant, because one of the great things about the bill itself was that even more than just the legislation itself was the galvanising effect that it had on academics and even students, actually. So organisations like Academics for Academic Freedom have now got branches right the way throughout the country.
So it's kind of also quite optimistic not optimistic, but it's quite heartening, really, to see that, you know, a group of people getting together, recognising there is a problem within one of our institutions, within our education system, and actually doing something about it and hopefully fixing this problem.
Absolutely, yes. And the important thing for me is that it's academics and, to some extent, students as well within universities that have seen, recognised the problem and wanted to do something about it. And so their fight back against the government's attempt to scupper the Act, and I mean, they have taken some important parts of the legislation out of it, and which won't actually now be enacted. But nevertheless, this guidance suggests that there is going to be something that happens from August. And having looked through the guidance, you know, I've been quite impressed, very impressed in many ways. It's got some very good examples in it of how situations relating to free speech emerge in universities and what can be done to prevent free speech being shut down. And all these examples are quite well worked through. It's quite nuanced, and it recognises differences in different situations. So all of that, I think, is a very positive thing. And, you know, the Arif Ahmed at the Office for Students has got to be congratulated on what he's managed to create.
Did you agree with what he said about how being offended is part of getting an education?
Well, I think that, yes. I mean, ideas are offensive to many people, depending on what they are, obviously. And if you're going to go into a university, then you should be open to engaging with all ideas, no matter whether they conflict with your own personal politics or whatever else. You need to be, I think, willing to engage with these, and you can't just run away from things that you find difficult. So on that respect, what he's tried to do, suggesting things like students immediately when they arrive at university are engaging with subjects that they don't like, topics, views that they don't like. I think that's to be welcomed. It's something that we in Living Freedom have also tried to do in terms of creating programmes within universities where young students can come along and can actually debate things.
Because do you think that students, like certainly those entering the higher education system, might have never really exposed to any ideas that are different to what they thought, and almost sort of going in without a shell to protect themselves?
Yes, I think I mean, there's a couple of problems, I think. I mean, one is the way that young people arrive at universities these days. There was an interesting report published recently which showed that 20% of young people of school age now have some sort of mental health issue going on, and I think the Labour government came in with a manifesto commitment to put a mental health professional in every school. And I think the influence of things like mental health and ideas around well-being are tremendously important for young people, in that they encourage an identification at an early age with having low self-esteem and not being able to deal with life, and ultimately, when you're like that, not being able to handle ideas. So the danger is that we've socialised young people into a situation, even before they turn up at university, where they're ill-equipped to deal with university life. And I mean, I'm old enough to remember when you arrived at university having come of age. That was the point. It was an important reference point to you being an adult, and you've been freed of your family commitments, and you've been a young person who has individual responsibility and is willing to engage with the world. And I think what we see with universities these days is the exact opposite. The universities take on this kind of parental role, sheltering people, assuming before they even get the chance to develop that there's something that's going to be difficult in life at universities. And that, I think, is going to be part of the problem of the way that this undoubtedly positive aspiration to see young people exercise free speech. I think that's going to be one of the difficulties.
It comes into play in August. Do you think there's going to be an immediate culture shift? Or do you think it's going to be more gradual?
I think it will be difficult. I think it will be gradual at best, because I think there'll be a lot of resistance to this. I mean, we've already seen, if you think about things like the Supreme Court decision on women's rights, and you've seen a kind of institutional resistance to what was a very clear court ruling. And it's pretty clear from the way that this legislation has been received that the Russell Group of universities, the very influential big group of universities, has not been happy at it coming in, and they, in collaboration with the Labour Party, really were probably the people that tried to scupper it. So there's not at the heart of many universities an embrace of a culture of open debate and freedom. And I think what we're asking the Act to do is to be a top-down mechanism that leverages in free speech, and issuing fines, quite substantial fines actually, arguably quite
University
authoritarian.
Of Sussex, there was $500,000. That's a lot of money.
Over $500,000, and threats of
and they're contesting
even bigger
before.
funds. They're contesting it, and regardless of what you think, can a law be used to leverage in free speech? I think that's open to debate. I think much more productive would be an embrace by the universities themselves and the academics within them. And I've mentioned organisations like Academics for Freedom and Campaign for Academic Freedom, who I think are very good. But then you've also got the unions within that represent academics who are fundamentally opposed to free speech. So you've got quite a level of resistance to free speech, both at an institutional and an academic level. So the battle, to me, needs to be. I would see this guidance as a starting point rather than the end of the story. It's galvanised lots of people around the cause of free speech and academic freedom, and I think they need to be ready for a battle ahead to make sure that in the day-to-day life of universities, that culturally free speech becomes something that's embraced and celebrated, and young people are enthused by it. And I think that's quite a long, hard struggle ahead till we achieve that.
Well, good news, but the fight continues. That's how we'll leave it. Thanks. Fine. Well, thank you very much. That is the organiser for Living Freedom, Alastair. Coming up, What do Iranians think of the regime in their country? I'll be joined by Faraza Alvey. But next on Free Speech Nation, the US Supreme Court ruling has upheld Tennessee's ban on gender transition treatments for children. See all about that in 2 minutes. See you then.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. The US Supreme Court has upheld Tennessee's ban on gender transition treatments for children. In a 6-3 vote, the justices ruled that restricting puberty blockers and hormone treatments for under 18s is not discrimination. The case, United States versus Scarametti, is the first time America's top court has weighed in on transgender healthcare for minors. And with 25 other states having similar laws, this ruling could set the tone nationwide. I am joined now by lawyer and author Cara Dansky. Cara, you're there. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
How are you? Now, this is a strange one, isn't it? Because this law is being fought on the idea of sex discrimination. So suddenly they know what sex is.
Right. That's one of the more interesting aspects of the case. Tennessee enacted a law that prohibits the administration of puberty blockers, opposite-sex hormones, and surgeries for minors. And a group of minors, represented by the American Civil Liberties Union, filed suit challenging the law based, as you say, on sex discrimination, as well as discrimination based on so-called transgender status. And they also brought an interesting claim under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment.
OK, and the justices, was this to be expected? I know it's a mostly conservative bunch of judges, right?
So this outcome was to be expected. And groups in the United States who care about the well-being of minors are absolutely celebrating this outcome. But I do just want to note that the majority only ruled on the claims of sex discrimination and discrimination based on so-called transgender status without reaching the question of equal protection, which is somewhat of a disappointment for those of us who care about the sex-based rights of women and girls.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things is the responses from the people who are pushing for this to happen. They were saying this has been a real betrayal of trans children, and some people would argue that there's no such thing as a trans child. So wouldn't necessarily the real betrayal be of actually medicalising these children in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. The group Women's Declaration International USA filed a friend of the court brief, in this case on the side of Tennessee, arguing, one, that the phrase transgender people is not sufficiently coherent to be protected as a class, but also that children have an international human right to grow into healthy adults. And the third argument was that sex is grounded in material reality, whereas gender is basically sexist, regressive stereotypes.
This is it. So framing trans as a medical condition as opposed to a psychological condition, that if this had gone through, I mean, that's incredibly dangerous, right?
This is one of the contradictions in the movement for so-called trans rights, is that sometimes they will say it is a medical condition that requires puberty blockers and opposite sex hormones, and other times they'll say it's simply a psychological condition or a feeling in a person's head. And, you know, when we look carefully at this entire movement, we see that it's riddled with all sorts of contradictions like that.
No, of course, that's exactly. And didn't the Biden administration also support this case on the opposite side of Trump?
Right. The Biden administration got involved at an early stage on the side of the ACLU, and the Biden administration only argued the argument under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. So that's really the one that the Supreme Court was focused on.
And do you, I mean, it seems to be such a huge shift since Trump came into power. And I think a lot of people who aren't necessarily natural Trump supporters, but have been very pleased with what he's done in terms of the pushback against trans ideology within America. So it's a massive shift in a very short amount of time, isn't it?
It is. And I will say that WDI USA is a nonpartisan organization that does not get involved in discussions about parties or candidates. I will say, speaking solely for myself, I have never voted for him. I have no intention of ever voting for him. Interestingly, the Trump administration could have withdrawn this. They didn't have to fight it, but they chose to do it because I think they anticipated this outcome. But yes, many of us who do not consider ourselves Trump supporters and have never been Republicans, many of us, myself, who are lifelong Democrats, are quite happy with several of the things that the current administration has done on the topic of sex and gender.
Well, do you think the Democrats are still going to be pushing for this? Because there's the arguments, of course, that that's partly what lost them the election. But do you think that the Democrats are still very much wedded to trans ideology? Over in the UK, it's actually the movement, as you know, against gender ideology sort of came much more from the left, whereas it seems to be flipped a little bit in America.
Yeah, there is no question that this issue cost the Democrats the 2024 presidential election. We know that from post-election polling, but we also know from later polling in January of this year that 67% of rank-and-file Democrats are opposed to things like allowing male athletes to compete in women's sports. As to your specific question, the Democrats at the federal level are going to dig in their heels. They're not going to change their tune. They have shown us that over and over again. But I will say on a more hopeful note that at the state level, there are a number of Democrats who have broken ranks with the party and voted to protect women's sex-based rights or voted to protect children from harmful hormones or both. So there's a little sign of hope there. But at the federal level, the Democrats in Congress are not budging on this.
Fair enough. Well, I know this is slightly outside of your remit, but obviously America, you're a few hours behind us. I'm wondering how Americans reacted this morning, waking up to find out about the actions against the Iranian nuclear facilities. Is there any kind of feeling in the street, or is it along sort of political lines?
It's mostly along political lines. understandably. I don't know what the feeling is like in the streets, but I can say, and as you say, this is not really my remit, but I have been paying attention, and the Democrats in power, the prominent Democrats, seem to have three main arguments against this action. One, the argument is that this action violates statutory and constitutional law and exceeded statutory and constitutional authority. Another reaction from the Democrats is that this is going to cost American lives in the region. And a third is that this is only going to cause the Iranian nuclear program to escalate. Now, the Democrats in power are not 100% united in that. There are a handful of Democrats, including a senator from Pennsylvania named John Fetterman, who actually supports this action. So the reactions seem to be a bit mixed.
All right, well, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That is lawyer and author Cara Dansky. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too. Thank you.
That is the end of the first hour on Free Speech Nation, but don't go away because there's lots more to come between now and 9 o'clock, including our interview with an actual Iranian who might actually tell us what actual Iranians think. See you in a couple of minutes. You don't want to miss it.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. I hope you've had a lovely weekend. We are transitioning into next week on a showery theme. We'll continue to see them spread their way in from the west and steadily push eastwards throughout this forthcoming night. There is a chance that many of us could catch one of those showers at some point. The heaviest of those will be up towards northwestern regions. They're pushing in on quite a brisk breeze, and that is heralding in some fresher conditions as well. So compared to the humid and muggy nights we've seen of late, tonight should hopefully be a touch more comfortable for sleeping for many of us. Those winds, though, will be quite strong at times tomorrow, particularly for the northern Isles, where they could reach gale strength gusts at times, with some longer spells of rain pushing through here. The showers will always be most frequent tomorrow across northern and western regions. Generally, if you're to the east of higher ground, so eastern Scotland, northeast England, there will be more in the way of drier spells and some sunshine. It's particularly, though, Wales into southern England where we'll see the bulk of the sunshine throughout tomorrow, and it should be a relatively fine day overall. Despite that breeze, though, giving it a slightly cooler feel, it is still worth remembering that UV levels will be high in places in that sunshine, since we are only just past the summer solstice. Temperatures tomorrow will be ranging between around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius for northern areas and closer towards 22 to 24 in the south. As we move into Tuesday, we are going to be seeing another frontal system gradually push its way in from the west, still bringing that sort of changeable, unsettled theme. More longer spells of rain possible across western regions in association with this. Areas to the east may manage to stay dry, but there will be a lot more cloud around on Tuesday in general. And a slight shift in wind direction to a southwesterly means we're going to be feeling in some more humid conditions, and those temperatures may just pick up a little bit as well. The rest of the week continues that changeable theme. Showers, longer spells of rain, maybe even some thunderstorms at times. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, but first let's get a news update from Katie Bowen.
Josh, thank you and good evening. Your latest headlines at 8 o'clock. President Trump has said this evening that America had a spectacular military success yesterday, taking a, quote, bomb right out of Iran's hands. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned Iran against retaliation following US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, saying such an action would be the worst mistake they've ever made. After weeks of preparation, US officials say that the mission, which has been codenamed Midnight Hammer, obliterated Iran's nuclear ambitions but did not target any troops or civilians. In the last half an hour, Iran's Atomic Energy Agency said that nuclear sites are quickly being rebuilt, with activity to continue with greater power. The US said that 3 key sites, Natanz, Isfahan and Fordo, sustained extremely severe damage, and new footage shows the Natanz and Isfahan sites before and after the strikes. More than 125 military aircraft took part in the offensive, which has been described as the largest B-2 operational strike in US history. Iran earlier labelled the strikes as outrageous with everlasting consequences, as Vice President J.D. Vance said that the US is not at war with Iran, but it is at war with its nuclear programme. In a press briefing at the Pentagon, US Air Force General Dan Kane said that the safety of the US is their top priority, and the United Nations Security Council is holding an emergency meeting this evening. Well, Israel and Iran have continued to attack each other today as the IDF say that the rate of their strikes will increase and that they are prepared to continue their campaign for as long as necessary. It was reported earlier that Israel struck targets in 10 cities across Iran, and it's just been confirmed that a brigade chief, 3 officers and 2 soldiers have been killed in an Israeli attack in western Iran. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, said that Israel will continue to meet any Iranian attacks with overpowering righteous force, adding the world is a safer place following America's strikes. Iran reportedly launched its most significant attacks on Israel since the conflict was renewed last week. To domestic reaction, the leaders of the UK, France and Germany have issued a joint statement urging Iran not to destabilise the region as they reiterated their own commitment to peace and affirmed their support for the security of Israel. Foreign Secretary David Lammy said that he spoke with his counterparts in Iran and Israel to stress the need for de-escalation. Earlier, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer urged Iran to negotiate with the US.
It is important that we now de-escalate the situation, stabilise the region, and get the parties back around the table to negotiate. And I've been speaking with international leaders this morning to that end. So I want to reassure the British public that we're doing everything we can to stabilise the situation, to de-escalate the situation, and to get to a negotiated outcome. But I'm very clear in my own mind that Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. That is the greatest threat to stability in the region.
And British citizens and their dependents are set to be evacuated from Israel as early as next week. The government is urging those who want to leave to make contact with the Foreign Office as soon as possible. The Israeli government says around 22,000 tourists are seeking to be evacuated, but it's unclear how many are UK citizens. British Airways has now suspended flights to Dubai and Qatar following the strikes. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Josh.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. We're going to get some more questions now from our audience. Our first question is from Eleanor.
Hi. Does the NHS discriminate against its staff for banning badges?
Yeah, does the NHS discriminate against the staff for banning badges? So, Bart's Health NHS Trust is facing legal action from staff, including British-Palestinian nurse Ahmad Baker, who claim its updated uniform policy disproportionately silences support for Palestine by banning symbols like the watermelon, now associated with Palestinian solidarity. The Trust, while previously showing support for Ukraine, argues that restrictions aim to maintain political neutrality in the workplace. So, Eleanor, what do you think about this? Do you think that nurses and doctors should just get on with helping people?
Yeah, I worked for the NHS for a number of years and private hospitals as well. The only badges we ever wore were our name badges, and sometimes not even that. And we never discussed politics. It's nothing to do with anything. Just to give you an example, my late husband, who was Jewish, had to go into hospital locally and then subsequently a care home. And he asked me to take off his Star of David. He wouldn't wear it because he just felt that he might be discriminated against. So, you know,
unfortunately,
the world's gone mad.
First of all, may his memory be a blessing. And there are many stories, similar stories. There have been, we've covered them on this show, of Jewish people in hospital feeling like they had been discriminated against because of wearing a yarmulke and having badges, sort of stickers stuck around them. And there was a child who was treated, they believe, unfairly because they were very visibly Jewish. And then they went back in another time without wearing their yarmulke, and suddenly they were treated normally, and they didn't have to wait in the corridor on the floor. So I'm sorry that your husband obviously went through that. Well, you're a perfect person, really, to ask that question. Can you add anything better than that, Kerry?
I'm going to talk anyway. But, can I add anything to that? Not much. And do you know what? I really like your answer as well, because I think that the nursing profession, the doctor profession, I think the medical profession is a noble profession, and I think it stands above all that. And I think when you're in hospital, I don't want someone like even if you see a nurse come over to a bed wearing a pro-Indian Kashmir badge or something, that's going to make other people uncomfortable. A hospital is not a place where that should be happening and where these political views and ideologies should be streaming in. And I bet that the guy who wants to wear his badge wouldn't like it if he was in hospital and someone came in with a pro-Zionist badge, told him we're going to need that bed. I don't think he's going to trust the reasons, even though someone wearing a pro-Zionist badge probably means he's a good doctor.
I'm good at shopping, according to me.
What do you think about this? Because, Aideen, there is arguably hypocrisy here, because if the Trust is showing support for Ukraine, then that is, that's not beyond the remit of doctors.
Well, they've done it in France, haven't they, where they've banned all outward signs of religion. So
but that's across. That's not just in their health service
and everything else. And I think we can't argue with somebody that has worked in the NHS and has experience. And you shouldn't have anything because of the Hippocratic Oath. What is it? It is to help the person that's first and foremost. And you can't help it but being coloured if you see a Palestinian thing, maybe a Zionist thing. Maybe if I saw, somebody was a Protestant from north of Ireland, I'd be like, ooh, but thankfully I'm not a doctor. So I do think neutrality is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for asking that question, Eleanor. Oh, we're going to get a round of applause there. A spokesman for Bart's Health NHS Trust said, "We recognise the distress that global conflict has for our diverse workforce and continue to support their well-being as they serve our patients. However, as an NHS organisation, our primary responsibility is care for our patients." Very good. Our next question's from Quiz. Chris? Sorry. Quiz. Quiz is here.
Should a woman's only tower block let men in? And if not, who is going to do the DIY?
Chris, how dare you ask such a sexist question?
Unbelievable.
So, yes, should a woman's only tower block let men in, and if not, who's going to do the DIY? Ironically, of course, you are dressed like you have just been doing DIY. Or you've just come from a dogfight. It's one of them. Like a diverse audience.
You like you've just done a women's tower block.
Yeah, you just built the women's tower block. So, yeah, this is Brook House in Acton, West London, will be the UK's first housing development exclusively for women, offering 102 affordable social rented flats to support single women and survivors of domestic abuse. Managed by Women's Pioneer Housing and replacing an outdated estate, the project aims to address disproportionate impact of the housing crisis and domestic abuse on women in the borough. This sounds like a reasonable idea. I don't know if you read further into this, but the irony is that they're not allowing... They are also going to be allowing... Their definition of women includes basically trans women, which is biological men. And also they're saying that any trans men, i.e. women who identify as men or who might look like men, are not allowed in, which is somewhat ridiculous, going against the aim.
It didn't have that in the BBC article, which I read.
Strange, that.
But the question is, should men be allowed into DIY?
Well, no, the question is, should it be a women's-only space?
I think, speaking as a woman who's hurtling into menopause and has not had children and has not found a husband, I will have to come to some kind of a spinstery living arrangement with some of my sisters. So I am pro this kind of idea that women can take control of their own destiny and live together and make it work. I don't really believe that men and women should be segregated. It's funny, we're building up Victorian morals again. You know, we fought so hard, or women fought to be, we're equal to men, we want to go in men's spaces, we want to go in men's spaces, we want to have the rights to go around and do what we want, which we do have in the West. We don't have to be chaperoned anymore. But now we're rebuilding these Victorian morals. And I don't know how I feel about it. It's strange. I don't know if it's a step in the right direction. If women feel very traumatised by men, I think they should have their spaces. But a life without men is a life without joy.
Chris is getting excited. Kerry, what do you think about this? That's an interesting point, of course.
It was incredibly insincere, Josh.
No, but what do you think about? Should there be spaces for like men only, living spaces, aka asylum hotels?
No, I cannot think of any. I cannot think of anything worse than staying in a tower block of men. Personally, I wouldn't want to do that. And I don't want to sound too macho. But where is this tower block of women exactly? But I do think it's. I mean, a whole tower block of women. First of all, why not? I think some of the women who want to be there are ones who've been through abusive relationships and so on, and they don't want a safe building they can be in, which I think makes perfect sense. I would not want to be anywhere near that building on the day they all synchronise. That's going to be hell. You'll see it from space. You know, you'll see Tesco vans arriving with chocolate and ibuprofen and, I don't know, microwave scented bears or something. It's going to be madhouse, crazy. You know, it'll frighten the whole neighbourhood.
It's been a long time since you're in a relationship, hasn't it?
Yeah. So, but otherwise, I don't even know whether I'm in a position to have much of an opinion on it.
But if they're all ovulating at the same time, you can be like, go, 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 go. You'll be there.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, but wouldn't this be...
We'll put up chairs outside and have to play the game.
But isn't this an incentive, of course, for the women to not get in a relationship? As soon as they're, like, hook up with a guy...
Is that what you're afraid of, Josh?
They're like, that means they'll lose their home as soon as they find somebody, find a man, as long as they're heterosexual.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do they? But I mean, maybe I don't know. I don't know about that now. So it's going to So you're saying it's a bad thing because it's going to incentivise spinsterdom. But you see, 51% of people are women. There's more female babies born than men. So there's going to be 1% extra ladies on the shelf. So where are we going to put them? In the star block?
OK, fine. Well,
yeah, well, that's eventually, though, isn't it? They all end up eventually in women's homes full of women.
Right, well, Council... That's depressing.
They do, we die.
Peter Mason said the homes would be for women disproportionately affected by crisis, with some let to women who have experienced domestic abuse and other dangers. There's a big need for this type of specialist women-only accommodation. Almost 3,500 cases of domestic abuse were recorded in Ealing in the last 12 months. London affordable housing crisis disproportionately impacts women who still face a gender pay gap that sees them, on average, earn less than men, constraining their ability to afford rent. Our next question is from Sean.
Was the BBC right to postpone or scrap the current Gaza documentary, which they were due to broadcast in the next few days?
Yes, so, yeah, the BBC was it right to pull its latest Gaza documentary. The BBC has decided not to air the independently produced documentary, Gaza, Doctor Under Attack, citing concerns it could compromise the corporation's standard of impartiality. The move has sparked backlash from the filmmakers and public figures who accuse the BBC of censorship and failing to tell vital stories from the Gaza conflict. Now, Sean, what do you think about this? Would this be a documentary that might have interested you?
It would have interested me in terms of the content, but obviously the political issues here are causing the problems. And BBC are meant to be impartial, so they can't be seen to be sort of siding with one side or the other. So it's a political minefield and I suppose you could say a journalistic minefield also.
Well, this is it, Kerry. I mean, how biased must this documentary have been for the BBC to scrap it?
Exactly. And the producer of this programme has already been on radio saying that Israel is a rogue state and is ethnic cleansing and... Oh, sorry, I should have said spoiler alert.
Yeah.
You don't need to watch the documentary now.
So totally impartial, basically.
Yeah, totally. I always wonder when people say this stuff, which at the moment Israel is not. It's because they believe Israel will with Gaza and so on. But there's ethnic cleansing going on all across the Middle East in the millions and parts of Africa and so on. It's happening all over the place. And no one seems to care about it. That's what I don't get with any of this. No one seems to care about what is actually going on in the world and doing everything about, concentrating on the areas with the most need. Because everything is on this one tiny area, and it's gone crazy. But on the subject of, yes, the BBC, they should have standards. Do we not agree with that? Yes. And it'd be nice if they start meeting those standards. So, yeah, that's how I feel
about it. Well, it sounds like they are meeting those standards.
Yeah, and they haven't banned the documentary. They can go and sell the documentary to other...
They've reverted it back to the
company. So they can go to Ireland, where Telly Air will
They'll love it.
They'll love it. They'll love it.
With a kneecap soundtrack. It's going to be a big hit.
They'll lap it up.
Yeah, they'll lap it up. Somebody will buy it, but I haven't seen the documentary. I can't speak for it, but... Obviously, there is something going on that they don't think should be shown on the state broadcast.
Well, this is it. And I think as soon as it is released, just not on the BBC, someone like David Collier, who's an independent journalist, is just going to absolutely
rip it
Yes,
he will.
And I'm looking forward to that. Of course, the problem is that how much of our money got spent funding it. A BBC spokesperson said the BBC has continually produced powerful journalism about this conflict. Alongside breaking news and ongoing analysis, we produce original investigations such as those into the allegations of abuse of Palestinian prisoners and Israel's use of bunker-buster bombs and in-depth documentaries, including the award-winning Life and Death in Gaza and Gaza 101. So, next on Free Speech Nation, Faraza Alvey, an Iranian national, reveals what her fellow countrymen think of the regime in their country. You do not want to miss this. See you in 2 minutes.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Vegetarians now have a greater desire to wield power more than their meat-eating counterparts. I mean, you like a sausage, shouldn't you, Biggins?
I like a sausage, but I have gone off meat per se, funnily enough, as I'm getting older. I think there are, it takes a lot of eating a piece of meat, if you pardon the expression.
And the older you get, the more you find that it takes a lot of meat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I must admit, I have more of a conscience about eating meat as I get older.
Yeah.
And that's a fondness of animals brings that. And if you ever go on Instagram and you look at cows and horses and pigs,
they're wonderful.
They're all affectionate and incredible.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And there we are, putting it into our mouths and eating it.
What do you think about the move to enforce vegetarianism on people, though? Because especially in schools and some universities, there's this trend for Meat-Free Monday, where there's this enforced absence of meat on children.
I think it's ridiculous. Let kids do what they want, to be honest. Within reason, obviously, a healthy diet, da-da-da-da-da. But no, I think, you know, I don't eat meat, the husband eats meat. It's not an issue. Eat what you want. But I think that the fact that they're trying to force this into schools, look, let kids experiment, give them a vegetarian option.
Yes,
let them
and all
see
schools do that.
Just options.
It has just become political, and also there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I know children are often told that eating meat is terrible for the environment, but importing avocados thousands of miles is also terrible for the environment.
But also, I mean, a lot of vegetarian meals, certainly processed vegetarian meals, have got a load of salt and fat and sugar in them, so they're actually worse for you than eating a lean piece of meat.
I think the tide is turning now, because the new trend amongst young people, particularly young men, is protein. Chicken, breasts, tuna. That's the new trend, to get as much protein in them as possible. It's very difficult to do when you're vegetarian.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. It's nearly 24 hours since the world heard Donald Trump announce the US had successfully bombed Iran.
Strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran.
Well, I'm joined now by Iranian artist and policy researcher Faraza Alaveh. Welcome to the show. You're Iranian.
Yes.
You can actually tell us. All we're seeing online is everybody coming in with their opinions. None of them are Iranian. So, and obviously, there are many different Iranians with different opinions. But what is your personal feelings on these nuclear strikes, on the strikes on the nuclear sites?
I'm actually a proud Iranian, and I and millions of Iranian people are now so happy for this, because of these decisive actions of President Trump in joining the Prime Minister Netanyahu in attacking the nuclear sites of the terrorist regime in Iran. Thanks to that, right now we can see that our country was being prevented to become the second North Korea. And now there is a window of opportunity for us to make it the second South Korea now.
Some actual, and hopefully with that, do you think that this might lead to the regime change?
We are hopeful for that. I think the next step here is that if we kind of prevent this regime to collapse and we don't see any kind of regime change, this regime will start over to create its nuclear program and work on that. So for this, I'm hopeful that we see the opposition joining next to the United States and Israel in this, and people have put lots of trust in Crown Prince of Reza Pahlavi for that. I hope we see some changes in the coming days.
I mean, I think the thing is that people might be, just to look at you visually, might go to hear you speak like this. And I think that just shows a lack of understanding, because, of course, people are mixing up the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is a regime ruled by the Ayatollahs, and what that entails, and the murdering of young women and the hanging of gay people, with mixing that up with the actual Iranian people, and many of whom are desperate for their country to be free.
Yes, that's true. Actually, millions of Iranian people don't have any voice right now because of the internet shutdown inside the country. And because of that, unfortunately, we see here in the streets of the Western world that some people are trying to save Khamenei in this situation and even add to the level of oppression that this regime is putting on the shoulders of the people in Iran.
Well, listen, you posted about basically saying the UK is over, or words to that effect. Can you tell me why you posted that?
Well, I, as an Iranian woman, don't feel safe here in the UK, honestly, because when I sit in the streets, I see in the streets in London, I see that some people who are openly supporting terrorism are holding and raising the photo of Khamenei, the biggest terrorist of the whole world in our lifetime. And they are trying to save Khamenei, and they are trying to show the world that, okay, Israel should stop attacking Islamic Republic, should stop attacking the murderers of the Iranian people, actually. So even when I go to a protest to voice the Iranian people, my compatriots in my home country who don't have any voice inside Iran, I don't feel safe anymore here because there are thousands of people who are mainly non-Iranians and they are talking on behalf of us.
It's crazy to see. I mean, I have met many Iranians, certainly at these counter-protests over the last year and a half since October 7th, and the Iranian people and Jewish people have stood side by side supporting each other during that time. I haven't met Iranians who are pro-regime, and when you see, like we saw yesterday on the streets of London and across the UK, as you say, people, non-Iranians, usually white left-wing people, carrying placards of Ayatollah. That's insane, right? And they consider themselves left-wing, yet they're supporting a regime that murders, rapes women, that hangs homosexuals. What's going on in their brain?
I think the progressive values only matters to some people whenever their cause is similar to their bloody cause. They don't care about seeing the reality, about what people really want to see. So, yeah, whenever they see some people on the other side of their beliefs and their cause, they cannot stand that.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing to see. It's like anything that's, if it paints Israel, of course, as the bad guy for them, then they'll go along with that cause. Do you think it's just a total lack of education?
I don't know, actually. I think maybe there would be a lack of education, but I know that Khamenei's regime is putting lots of money in the different institutions in the Western world.
And Qatar as well.
Yes, to educate people to believe that they are on the right side of history.
Yeah, and we saw what happened when the left allied itself with the Ayatollahs in Iran itself. Can you explain that history to us?
Yes, actually, what happened to my country was that we were really growing economically and politically, and it was at the point that the far left aligned itself with the Islamists, and they made a revolution, and then they took over the country. And I think, honestly, today the UK can be so close to that point.
Because, of course, what happened was that the Islamists just murdered all the far left. There isn't a far left anymore in Iraq because they all got killed.
Yes, true.
So you think that something like that could possibly happen here? There's this strange allyship between the two groups.
I think when you appease terrorism in your own country, it can happen very soon and in the blink of an eye, and you cannot even predict what is that moment.
Do you think that today is actually a moment of optimism? Because we are seeing, of course, if the nuclear threat from Iran has been eradicated, then that could lead to further steps of peace. Of course, we can have the extension of the Abraham Accords, genuine peace in the Middle East. With the threat of Iran out of the way, you think that that could lead to peace with Saudi Arabia and Israel, and actually this could be an incredibly hopeful moment.
Well, Iranian people are now looking forward to seeing Cyrus Accord, an extension of Abraham Accords, as you said, to see a free Iran. It can only happen when Iran would be a free, not under this regime. So after that, absolutely lots of the funds that is coming from this terrorist regime to the region, to the proxies, and also to the Western world would be stopped.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's the great irony here, is you have people, supposedly anti-war people, and even anti-nuclear organisations defending Iran developing nuclear weapons. And but the reality is, on the ground, I think, in the Middle East, that there's many countries, many Muslim countries, that are very, very relieved by what President Trump has done.
Yes, I think the Western world, mainly, as you said, the far left, they are missing the point of thanking President Trump for what he has done today, last night, actually. So I think, yes, many people, millions of people in the Middle East are looking forward to the peace, and they don't have any voice here in the Western world.
Did you, because we've been at these counter-protests, you know, we've seen these sort of pro-Palestinian peace marches, but what I've seen there is really anything but peaceful. And when you're standing there with the Iranian flag, with the old Iranian flag, when standing there with the Israeli flag, the hate, I mean, we're very much outnumbered. So can you talk us through what happened on yesterday's protests and counter-protests?
There were thousands of people there in the protest for saving Khamenei's regime. And they were holding the photos of Khamenei, and all I saw was hate. And even if it's even okay to have hate, you can have free speech for hate, but the reality is that it was a terror march. So we need to be crystal clear on that. It was a terror march, and terror march should not have any place in a democracy.
What we're seeing now is that we're having the Palestinian Action. They're going to be a prescribed terrorist organisation. Do you think that this is our government acting too little, too late?
I think it can be too late, because the situation that I'm seeing right now is not even at the level of alarming. It's way beyond that than that. So it's really in the next level, and you should act much more faster than that.
Well, of course, the irony is, another irony is that within places like the UAE, they themselves are much better at dealing with Islamists. But of course, the freedoms that we enjoy within the UK have been exploited, those loopholes. You've seen that, right?
Yes, people of Middle East, they know what is the reality of these terrorist people. But here in the UK, I think because of many failed policies, such as immigration policies and bringing up lots of illegal immigrants to this country, or lots of other failed policies, it is really increasing the alarming level in this country.
I mean, because the numbers are that the greatest victims of Islamist violence are Muslims.
True.
And so our privilege here means that is barely acknowledged. Did you actually manage to talk to anybody on the other side and explain? I mean, did they seem confused by your physical appearance?
Well, actually, they think that they are supporting Muslims, but they are actually supporting terrorists. And they don't want to listen to the Muslims who are pro-Israel, who are pro-free Iran. I think this is a huge problem. They think that they are standing on the side of Muslims with the progressive values, but they are failing in that.
And have you personally received threats of violence for your position?
Yes, actually, I have received a lot. And whenever they see that a Muslim Iranian woman is speaking up in support of Israel or in support of seeing a free Iran, they suddenly label Islamophobia even on me. And they are saying that, OK, you are a Zionist, you are not a Muslim.
Well, I mean, the idea that, I mean, first of all, 20% of Israelis are Muslims. And all it believes is Zionism means that you think there can be a Jewish state. But, of course, Muslims in Israel have exactly the same rights.
Yeah, I'm a proud Zionist. But they see Zionism as a problem.
Yeah, well,
this is the issue.
Hopefully more and more Muslims like yourself speaking out, and hopefully will educate people. Thank you so much. And the bravest people that I have seen over the last year and a half in this country have been Iranians who've been standing up. So thank you so much for joining us. This is Iranian artist and policy researcher Fazeh Alavi. Coming up, why is David Walliams being told off by the BBC? But next on Free Speech Nation, we'll be talking Canada under Carney and a bus driver in a schoolgirl costume. See you in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Just like we're seeing across the UK, the heat wave that's also been in place in other areas of Europe is now beginning to subside and ease. Those temperatures generally dropping back towards closer to average for the time of year. And bar the odd shower, there will be plenty of sunshine across many areas of the Mediterranean. High pressure is looking like it will be staying in charge for a good portion of this forthcoming week, so there'll be plenty of fine weather around.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. I hope you've had a lovely weekend. We are transitioning into next week on a showery theme. We'll continue to see them spread their way in from the west and steadily push eastwards throughout this forthcoming night. There is a chance that many of us could catch one of those showers at some point. The heaviest of those will be up towards northwestern regions. They're pushing in on quite a brisk breeze, and that is heralding in some fresher conditions as well. So compared to the humid and muggy nights we've seen of late, tonight should hopefully be a touch more comfortable for sleeping for many of us. Those winds, though, will be quite strong at times tomorrow, particularly for the Northern Isles, where they could reach gale strength gusts at times, with some longer spells of rain pushing through here. The showers will always be most frequent tomorrow across northern and western regions. Generally, if you're to the east of higher ground, so eastern Scotland, northeast England, there will be more in the way of drier spells and some sunshine. It's particularly, though, Wales into southern England where we'll see the bulk of the sunshine throughout tomorrow, and it should be a relatively fine day overall. Despite that breeze, though, giving it a slightly cooler feel, it is still worth remembering that UV levels will be high in places in that sunshine, since we are only just past the summer solstice. Temperatures tomorrow will be ranging between around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius for northern areas and closer towards 22 to 24 in the south. As we move into Tuesday, we are going to be seeing another frontal system gradually push its way in from the west, still bringing that sort of changeable, unsettled theme. More longer spells of rain possible across western regions in association with this. Areas to the east may manage to stay dry, but there will be a lot more cloud around on Tuesday in general. And a slight shift in wind direction to a southwesterly means we're going to be feeding in some more humid conditions, and those temperatures may just pick up a little bit as well. The rest of the week continues that changeable theme. Showers, longer spells of rain, maybe even some thunderstorms at times. Bye-bye.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, to give us a look at the current state of Canada under their new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, I am joined in the studio by Canada-based writer for the Free Press, Rupa Subramanya. Hello.
Thank you, Josh.
Meeting you in the flesh. We've seen you on the screen.
I know.
And this is it. This is what it looks like.
No, it's a real honour to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So, Mark Carney, he's been in charge now for a while. Has there been a shift since taking over from Justin
There's
Trudeau?
been a little bit of a shift, I would say. He seems a little less woke, a little less progressive than Justin Trudeau. He's made some noises on the economy. So Mark Carney was known for his environmental advocacy, which began when he was Bank of England governor here in the UK. But he hasn't once mentioned climate change. He didn't mention it during the campaign. And he's made some positive gestures towards building of pipelines in Canada. Canada is a resource-rich country with an abundance of oil and natural gas, which have been stymied. The development of these resources have been stymied for years, decades, because of environmental activism and also the previous prime minister, his predecessor, Justin Trudeau, didn't believe in developing these resources. But Mark Carney has made some positive gestures towards the development of these resources. I also think that he's going to be fiscally conservative. And given that he was Bank of Canada's governor and also the Bank of England's governor, I think he's going to have a good grip on monetary policy in Canada, so I suspect that he would want to keep inflation under control.
And this is what Canadians really want. I mean, economy first, I guess.
Yes, given the fact that for months we've been trolled by President Trump about annexing Canada economically, which actually had an impact on our elections, where the Liberal Party was 30 points down in the polls, and miraculously, when Mark Carney came on the scene, he was able to somehow get the Liberal Party out of the pit, essentially, and they wiped off the lead from the opposition Conservative Party, who were leading in the polls for 2 years, a 20-point lead, and that lead just evaporated, and then Mark Carney becomes prime minister. So I would say that Mark Carney has also done something very important, which is he has managed the relationship with President Trump quite well so far. In my reading of it, the relationship between him and Justin Trudeau was incredibly toxic and fractious, but that seems to those days seem to be behind us now. Mark Carney hosted leaders of the G7 recently last week in Alberta, and President Trump came to Alberta, and he had some very nice things to say about Canada and about Mark Carney. So one is hopeful that this is a reset in Canada-U.S. relations. But we still have to strike a trade deal with the U.S. Trump essentially just ignored what he negotiated in 2017.
But there hasn't been many sort of developments along the sort of what we would call the culture wars. It still feels like institutions are very much captured. I think Jordan Peterson.
100%.
There's this his sort of re-education. Is that happening now? Finally, that he.
Yes, he's been assigned a coach. So Jordan Peterson got into trouble with the College of Psychologists, the licensing body for psychologists in the province of Ontario, and for a bunch of mean tweets, for which he's actually been proven right on a bunch of different things. He was questioning net zero emissions and how they would impact poor people, poor kids in developing countries. And I think he misgendered Elliot Page, and he called Justin Trudeau's advisor a prick. And for that, he's basically being sent to the gulag. It's reminiscent of what used to happen.
I'm going to send you to the gulag for quoting that.
Yeah, no, it's very Kafkaesque because he's not been accused of any professional misconduct, but he's being reprimanded for these posts, for these tweets.
And so now the re-education is actually going to happen. Is that right?
Yes, they've assigned a coach, but bizarrely enough, this individual is based in the UK.
Okay, well that's what we're best at. So it's all going to be Zoomed, is it?
Yes, it's going to be on Zoom.
So is he going to release these? Is he allowed to release them?
So this was one of his conditions. If I'm going to go through this re-education, I have nothing to hide. I want this to be public. I want Canadians to know what I'm being put through. And I
what
think
is wrong think?
Yes, and I think that's a fair ask. And I spoke to Jordan a few days ago, and he said...
First name basis.
He's an amazing individual, and I'm just really saddened to see what he's being put through. He's essentially been driven out of Canada.
Yeah, it's better touring the world, mind you, spreading his word.
Yeah, and so we don't have the kind of pushback that we're seeing in the United States when it comes to woke and the woke and DEI culture. We're in fact doubling, tripling down on all of this stuff.
Because it seems to be sort of receding elsewhere across the West.
Yes, but it doesn't seem to be receding in Canada. We're still playing by the old playbook.
And finally, obviously, the big news of the day is the Trump attacking the nuclear sites. Now, I've read somewhere that if the regime collapses, they might go to Canada.
Yes, I'm actually quite worried about that. Well, the Prime Minister Mark Carney, basically made a bland statement, which was along the lines of what the UK and Australia also said in reaction to the strikes on these Iranian nuclear facilities. It's almost like Carney, Starmer, and Albanese got together and coordinated on this. statement. But my concern is the fact that, you know, our immigration policy is so incredibly lax. We already have accounts of our intelligence agency in Canada has already shown that we have people from the regime already in the country, and only one person has been deported so far. So given our lax immigration policy, you can fully expect regime officials to come to Canada, even though it's illegal. Canadian immigration rules forbid officials from the regime from entering Canada, but you know that's just a matter of law. Who knows what actually happens in practice?
Well, keep an eye on that. That was our Canadian-based writer for the Free Press, Rupa Subramaya. Thank you so much for joining us. Lovely to see you.
Thank you, John.
So, next on Free Speech Station, What Gesture has got David Walliams in hot water with the BBC. See you in a couple of minutes.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
You have a very nice accent, and I always thought but obviously I'm totally wrong. I've learned something already straight away.
I mean, we've interviewed together on countless occasions. I thought you would have picked up on my English accent.
Oh no, you're just changing it now. You're changing it a bit here.
Yeah, I'm just putting it on for you, mate.
Well, I'll tell you this, Chesney. I think it's amazing that we're talking about a tour next March for a man like you, and that shows you the extent to which you have to be organised to do these things. I thought like you're advertising this for this month or next month. Why the need to go so early?
Oh no, it's just to give people plenty of advance notice. You know, these days life comes up very fast, doesn't it? So I'm always touring, Eamon. I've actually got some headline shows coming up next week. I'm in Cardiff and Southampton, but we've just announced this headline tour for next year. So I thought I'd get it out there and let people know in advance. You know.
Good. And Chesney, just looking at your Instagram now, I mean, you've got a sense of humour, haven't you? Because you've been putting videos out there saying people think I'm a one-hit wonder, but let me tell you, there'll be a lot more songs than just the one that you're most famous for.
Yes. Contrary to popular belief, there are other songs. So looking forward, I've got a new album out right now, Ellie, and it's all been very, very well received. I'm so honoured and grateful for that. And so, yeah, I'll be performing some of this new album out on the road soon. You guys should come.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. The BBC says it was unacceptable that David Walliams made 2 Nazi salutes during a recording of Would I Lie to You? It was actually a few months ago, but it was revealed this week. The comedian joined in during a story about someone injuring their wrist while waving, ending it with the Nazi gesture. I am joined now by the writer and director of the sitcom Hapless, Gary Signor. Gary, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here again. Thank you very much.
Wonderful sitcom that you directed that I also am in.
You are in.
It here. So when I read the story this week, it seemed somewhat ridiculous to me that the BBC had sort of come out and chastised David Walliams for essentially making a joke. Now, whether you think it's a particularly good joke or not, he's obviously doing it for comedic purposes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know, because I don't know what the context was. I mean, neither
they're recording a comedy show.
Right, but neither of us, I mean, you know, neither of us really know the full context. We're only going by what we've heard and what we've read in the media. So, but I think the idea of the BBC chastising him is it's a very minimal kind of thing. I mean, it's a non-story, other than the fact that we turned it into a story. Because...
Don't talk about how it works behind the scenes, Gary.
Well, no, it's not. It's just that like, you know, look, I mean, I'm not going to... But if I put my hand like that in a comedy thing, then that's all right, right? I mean, I assume if I... and if I put my left hand like that, I assume I can do that, right? So I don't know. But if I say... Let's say I was prepared to do the full Nazi salute, let's say, and I said, I love Jewish people... then that's all right, I would imagine. I say I love Jewish people, that's absolutely fine. But if I'm going like this, if I'm going like that, my hand is down, it doesn't matter where my hand is, and I say I hate Jewish people, that's unacceptable. So, well, I don't understand what the point is. I mean, I understand the reference.
I mean, I guess the point is that there's, for me, and first of all, you know what, let's play a little clip from your TV series to talk about exactly the Nazi salute being used in a comedic fashion.
Yeah, OK.
This electric car is out of charge. Do you mind if we plug in?
What are you doing?
What?
Are you doing the quenelle?
The what?
The reverse Nazi salute.
Just brushing hair off my arm.
No, it's a Nazi salute.
That footballer Anelka used it. He was banned. God, I can't believe we're being lectured on Nazi salutes by non-Jews. Look, this is just brushing hair off my arm. This is a Nazi salute. This is brushing hair off my arm.
Yes, this is a Nazi salute, but this is... It's the reverse
I have
Nazi
never seen that in my life. This is the Nazi. I've never heard of that in my life.
Salute.
This is a Nazi salute. You can see the difference. This is just...
But this is also the reverse Nazi.
Got to laugh in the studio.
That's a lot of Nazi salutes there. So the point is that there are many examples of Nazi salutes being used in comedy. The most famous, probably to my mind, would be Mel Brooks, Springtime for Hitler, but also John Cleese, Fawlty Towers.
Yeah.
Even Heidi, not Heidi, what was it? LOLO would have them entering and using a Sieg Heil. So the idea that now suddenly we're not allowed to do it.
So I wonder here if there's a much bigger and worse thing going on, which is that the BBC basically are getting, every time they do anything, they're getting 600 letters from, let's say, influential Jewish people and boards and lobby groups saying what you're doing is absolutely disgraceful. And
you're talking about the Israel coverage?
No, I'm talking about generally, whenever they do anything.
Do you think the
Board of Deputies and all of the Jewish organisations will all write in and say...
The Board of Deputies didn't say anything about this.
No, they might not, but there'll be a lot of Jewish people who get very, very worked up about anything that's in the least bit, let's say, possibly anti-Semitic. I mean, the word has been used. And then on the other, and they write to Tim, or they do an open letter, right? And then you get the people who completely disagree with that will get 600 celebrities to write the exact opposite letter saying, dear Mr. Davey, you're far too nice to Jewish people and you're too hard on Muslim people.
But what you're saying now seems to be talking about specifically the Gaza coverage as opposed to in comedy. I would be surprised if the BBC, if this had even gone out, there would be one letter from a Jewish organisation, even a Jewish person saying this is unacceptable. You don't see that with Fawlty Towers, but when it comes to, of course, Gaza... let's take, for example, the 14,000 babies being killed and starved in 48 hours.
No, well, that's
but the point was that was put out by BBC News. Now, that was arguably anti-Semitic. That was
no, it's not arguably. That is a foul slur, and it's an insult to the BBC. It's insulting to the organisation of the BBC that the article in which someone accused the Israelis of being about to kill 14,000 people.
It's actually on Radio 4, yeah.
On Radio 4, for 14,000 babies in 48 hours by starvation, which is an impossibility because you can't predict that when a baby is going to die from starvation. So it clearly was absolute drivel, and it's still to this day on the BBC. Now, if I was concerned, generally, I would write to the BBC daily to insist that that particular story gets removed from the BBC. It should not be on there. It's beyond anti-Semitism. It's a kind of blood libel.
Well, it's spread around the world.
And it's not possibly anti-Semitic. It's virulently anti-Semitic. And so it needs... And they have admitted it. They've admitted it was completely bogus. It was a lie. So then you take it down. What's it still doing on the BBC? At all. So I'm afraid that they're all of a mess, I think. The BBC is all of a mess. I can't say it's the only one that's all of a mess. I think probably our media generally is quite screwed up.
Yeah.
Do you not think?
No. I guess for me, when I read this article, what seemed ridiculous to me was the fact that you had David Walliams being chastised for a joke, whereas when the BBC, I've seen, I have to say arguably, but putting out modern blood libel like that, it just seemed massively hypocritical. Yeah, that they're going to focus on this one little thing, which was used specifically in comedy, and taking that out of context.
But I think it's because we've lost the ability to laugh, and that is partly the fault of the BBC. As a society, we have lost the ability to laugh. We used to have jokes, right? If I do an impersonation of an American, right, and I go, "Hey, Josh, how you doing?" You know,
I prefer to do your Jamaican impression.
No. I do an impersonation of American. "Hey, Josh, how you doing?" "Hey, you're having fun. You're having fun," right? And then I do an impersonation of Italian. "Hey, come si dice? You have a lasagna." It's not racist.
By the way, we're about to get a bunch of letters from Italians.
That's not. No, I doubt any Italians are right. But if I start doing Chinese, I start to get a lot of trouble. You see? Now, why? Why is the question? I know it's a terrible accent, but the point is, why? Why is that not acceptable if these are all different races? And I think this is because we have lost the ability generally to laugh. And I think that, and it's partly from the BBC, and that is more crucial to anything else. The problems we have in society are because we're not laughing.
All right, well, hopefully we'll laugh more, and good luck with that Chinese impression. That was right-hand narrator Gary Senior.
Thank you very much.
A BBC spokesperson said, I'm going to do this in a Chinese accent, no, I'm not. The use of such an offensive gesture is completely unacceptable, and we apologise to all at the recording for the offence created. So thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. This was a week when the US protected children from gender transition care, and David Walliams was told off by the BBC. Thank you very much to my panel, Kerry Marks and A.D. McQueen, and to all of my brilliant guests this evening. I think it's been a very illuminating show. If you want to join us live in the studio and be part of our wonderful audience, you can. Please go to gbnews.com/tickets. Stay tuned for the brilliant Ben Leo tonight. That is next. Don't forget his new show, which is on afterwards at 11 p.m. And it's been lovely seeing you, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for watching Free Speech Nation. Goodbye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. I hope you've had a lovely weekend. We are transitioning into next week on a showery theme. We'll continue to see them spread their way in from the west and steadily push eastwards throughout this forthcoming night. There is a chance that many of us could catch one of those showers at some point. The heaviest of those will be up towards northwestern regions. They're pushing in on quite a brisk breeze, and that is heralding in some fresher conditions as well. So compared to the humid and muggy nights we've seen of late, tonight should hopefully be a touch more comfortable for sleeping for many of us. Those winds, though, will be quite strong at times tomorrow, particularly for the Northern Isles, where they could reach gale strength gusts at times, with some longer spells of rain pushing through here. The showers will always be most frequent tomorrow across northern and western regions. Generally, if you're to the east of higher ground, so eastern Scotland, northeast England, there will be more in the way of drier spells and some sunshine. It's particularly, though, Wales into southern England where we'll see the bulk of the sunshine throughout tomorrow, and it should be a relatively fine day overall. Despite that breeze, though, giving it a slightly cooler feel, it is still worth remembering that UV levels will be high in places in that sunshine, since we are only just past the summer solstice. Temperatures tomorrow will be ranging between around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius for northern areas and closer towards 22 to 24 in the south. As we move into Tuesday, we are going to be seeing another frontal system gradually push its way in from the west, still bringing that sort of changeable, unsettled theme. More longer spells of rain possible across western regions in association with this. Areas to the east may manage to stay dry, but there will be a lot more cloud around on Tuesday in general. And a slight shift in wind direction to a southwesterly means we're going to be feeding in some more humid conditions, and those temperatures may just pick up a little bit as well. The rest of the week continues that changeable theme. Showers, longer spells of rain, maybe even some thunderstorms at times. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy